Now the official part starts, and I once again welcome you to Juxtapositions, Perspectives on Contemporary Cultural Production here at the Berlin University of the Arts, a series of talks that I've been hosting here now for 3 years in the 6th semester as a visiting professor for transdisciplinary artistic and design education. And as always, we have a special guest with us, and that's today Rafaela Kaćunić. And I was thinking, Rafaela and I met in 2018. I kind of went through my old emails, and this is how far I went down. So this is now 6 years ago when I actually invited you to present your then still relatively new magazine, This is Badland, at a monthly series of talks called Crossroads that I've been hosting for 7 years now at the Soho House in Berlin. And then, I don't know, we crossed paths a couple of times. The last time, hence I was playing Pashanim before, we crossed paths backstage at a concert at Columbia Halle of Pashanim, and then we kind of talked and updated each other on what we're doing. And then in 2022, I believe, you were also included with This is Badland in a project I did during the Venice Biennale in a kiosk on independent publishing. And your partner in crime was there and presented. So this is kind of our personal backdrop. But you have a background in fashion design and visual communication, but you work as a creative director and an editor from Berlin here. You are largely focused on visual ideation and production within culture, fashion, lifestyle, and beauty. And your very inter-trans, cross-disciplinary work spans writing, independent publishing, strategic consulting, concept development, and overseeing 360 campaign and photo motion direction. So you're very much driven by storytelling, by a narrative approach, and with that in the back of your mind, you co-founded This is Badland in 2017, and that's a magazine, print and online publication dedicated to the Balkan region and beyond. The magazine is self-published in English and it's distributed worldwide, reflecting its commitment to offering cultural stories to a wider audience and curating the best of emerging local and international talent. That said, Rafaela, thank you for being here, and a warm applause to our guest tonight.
Hello. Do you hear me? Great. Thank you so much, Lukas, for inviting me, and for all of you for having me here and listening, taking the time. I don't know how to start. Maybe with when I was thinking about, okay, well, apparently I'm a culture producer. Where should I start? How should I introduce myself? Because I've done so much so far, and for me, actually, the most important thing is to start from a personal angle, and I wish every person I would meet could just start from their childhood story and show me like childhood pictures, like I'm all up for it. So this is how I approached this presentation today. So this is a really meaningful picture of my dad and I in the mountains in Dalmatia, and that's the village where my dad comes from, Putschici. And this image just shows something I was like trying to reach or dealing with my whole life, like the bridge between my parents and I, the culture there and the culture where I also grew up in Germany, and the kind of the bridging of two worlds, but also in a way of finding the sweet spot in the middle, because that's exactly what I was trained for actually my whole childhood without realizing, and this is how I actually ended up doing what I do. So I always think it's super interesting to, not self-analyze into obsession, but to really look at the childhood, at old pictures, and trying to understand our upbringing from a third perspective maybe, and trying to find the sweet spot in all of it and the silver lining despite all the circumstances. So, as I mentioned, I grew up between two worlds. I was born in Mülheim an der Ruhr, which is Nordrhein-Westfalen, west of Germany, in '89. And in my family, completely, mother's and dad's side are from Croatia, from villages, both war-torn, suffered in war, and and this is me having to deal with always like these two personalities, because my family until this day is very traditional and conservative, and then I grew up in the most industrial area in Germany, where things were quite different. And so since early childhood, I always learned also through my family story that was war influenced, and there was a lot of black and white thinking, let's say. And I always felt there is more to it. So I was constantly searching for, who am I? What is this? Like, it doesn't make sense. I feel torn. And yeah, it wasn't until I met my co-founder and partner Nina from Badland that actually the third side and the third narrative came across, and I got to learn so much more about seeing a certain reality from different angles, and and actually, taking a leap and encountering these different perspectives on the Balkan area and beyond that. So this is a quote that I really like. Creativity occurs in an act of encounter and is to be understood with this encounter as its center. So this is really what happened with Badland. Like, we connected, and then we were both kind of like lost. She was like, I don't know anyone, can you help me? I was like, I don't know anyone, but let's just do it, And then we just started reaching out to people on Facebook. Back then, it was like in 2016, and coming up with like concepts and ideas. I remember back then I was actually sharing a studio with Jonas Lindström, who also used to study at Curated, I believe, and he was like, oh, what are you doing there? I was like, yeah, I want to publish a magazine. So we were quite naive and like clueless about it. And a lot of people, asked me like, oh, how did you do that? And I was like, I had no clue. It was just the encounter. I was super curious, or we were super curious. And we didn't even think about the next steps, basically. It was just like, oh, let's meet the people who would be down to contribute. And then we were just collecting stories and, rounding it up. And so, since it's all about encounter, this whole publication and my whole life, this is really like everything I'm producing, every image, every video, every concept is about, actually the... Can you push the microphone back a little bit? Oh yeah, sorry, I'm breathing too heavy. Thanks. It's all about meeting new people, getting new perspectives in, hearing their stories, and really viewing life from a different perspective. So I would like to show you a few stories that I produced for the past Badland issues. I don't know if now is maybe a good moment to also pass the issues around, if you want. You can have a look then. Exactly, thank you. And this, for example, was shot last summer in Croatia on Murter Island. I've met Irena Ateljević, who's like a critical theorist, and she also fled from the war, and I met her daughter, and then we were hanging out for her birthday, and then I was invited to their island, and then we talked about the magazine and everything, and then we talked about our pasts and her family's past, and even though we were from different generations, but we had so much in common as well when it comes to like trauma and pain and so on, so it was really interesting and fun also. And then we produced this little video. Oh, it's just a PDF, right? Can I click on it? It's a PowerPoint. Oh, it's a PowerPoint, okay. Oh, I'm really not familiar with PowerPoint, but does it work? By itself? Einfach Leertaste?
So a worst case like this?
Yeah, it's just to give you like a little... Is there sound also?
Yeah.
Have we played? Cool.
So maybe like that?
Yeah, sure.
We believe that within the smallest fragments to the
you don't
infinite
see
scales
it.
of existence, perhaps...
Well...
Say it again.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that within the smallest fragments to the infinite scales of existence, perhaps even between these pages, lies a world of possibility that goes beyond our chaotic present.
You don't see it, right? Okay, then I guess I skip this. It was working in my Google Slides, I don't know. It's a different technique on PowerPoint, I guess. But you can check it out on the Badland social channels if you want to. It was a little video we produced for this upcoming issue. So yeah, this is Irena Ateljević. It was like a super last-minute shooting. I remember meeting them and then chilling on the islands, doing nothing except like reading and washing dishes and swimming. And then I was like, damn, I really have to kind of capture her life story. It's so interesting. She has so much to say. And then I just asked her, can I come back in like 2 months and shoot another story? I know it's like super hard deadline then and we don't have time, but she's like, yeah, sure, I'm on an island. And then I just asked Bruna Kazinotti, she's a photographer based in Split, who is a friend of mine, if she would be down for photographing her. And then I organized the styling and brought some pieces from Berlin and just flew back and prepared interview questions. And then I recorded the session for 3 hours. And then I had 1 week to transcribe it and put it into the layout and everything. So it was like a really rushed thing, but we really loved the outcome. And I'm super happy that I've met her, I've encountered her, and that we were able to produce this story and interview. It was really fun. We're just hanging out the whole day and just, playing and having fun with her and her daughter. So, you can have a look at it's in the 5th issue, the one that the person on the right has. And it's like, I think 28 pages story or something, so it's really interesting. And also, we're probably redesigning our website, so it's not up yet. So you can only read it in print so far. And then this is a story that I shot in Macedonia, actually North Macedonia. And it's like this insane, gigantic restaurant/wedding party location, and also meant to be, health center and anything else you can imagine. It was like on a 2,000 square meter plot, and I went there with Decor Hardcore. That's her known Instagram handle, and her name is Ksenia Shestakowskaya. And we went there because she has been like obsessed with this building that she found online somehow through booking or through like some selling websites in the Balkans. She saw that it's like up for sale and she was like, what is this insane gem? Rafa, we have to go there. And then we just packed our stuff. I booked our flights and we just went. And then I contacted the architect actually on Facebook. I found him. That's how you find people in the Balkans. You just go on Facebook and like look for names. Still, and there it was really like insanity. That's like totally the style that was like on 2 floors, and it was just really insane. And then I wrote like a little article about it, and I don't know if it's still up for sale. Actually, I should have checked, but the idea was, which is actually funny, that like once the house was finished, it should have looked like a piano from the top. So it was outrageous, and I think it was like one of the craziest buildings I've ever seen. And so this is also like a trip I really enjoyed that I had thanks to the magazine. And and also it's great if you have your own publication, because you can just do these kind of things and just go to these places for no reason and just see what happens out of it. And then this is a story that I produced with Alice Rosati. She's an Italian photographer, and Samia Jabelina, fashion stylist from Paris. And here we were in Bosnia, in Sarajevo, and in Medjugorje. And it was really interesting to shoot there because we felt like aliens. And we were really amazed again by not just by the aesthetics, but because Medjugorje is a pilgrimage village, so it's really having this particular energy, and it attracts all kinds of people. So, and I know my mom also used to love to go there, or still goes there, and she was super excited we were shooting there, even though she was a bit confused by the images, but like, we just found it, she still liked it, but like, it was so much fun to shoot there because it was such an crazy energy and special experience, and we all thought about like, okay, we will never do this again, but this is epic. Like, it was really, really fun. And the idea here was like, the bigger the hair, the closer to God, which is like a known saying, and that was like for one of our cover stories, I think, of the 3rd issue. Then here, one of my closest friends, Rita, and I went to Milos Island in Greece, because again we were looking for landscapes, and we had this idea of like morphing into landscapes and really becoming the earth. And then we found Milos, which is like a really mesmerizing spot, and by now not as secret anymore as it used to be. And we went off season, so it was quite empty and really beautiful. And these are some shots that we took. Actually, I took of her, and yeah, it was also so much fun and like the craziest encounters and experiences. Again, just the two of us. With the locals, it was really, really fun. And here are just some images from there. And I also love this like process of like just having an intuitive idea and then just like looking for which place resonates with that, and then going there, and then you're not overthinking, but just doing it, and then trusting your own intuition and vision to kind of come through the edit as well. And it's so exciting to see it in print then. This was a story and a short article actually that I wrote also, I think, for the 3rd issue, if I'm not mistaken, or 4th. And this was shot by an iPhone, obviously. These are shots that I made, but also mixed with shots of like a fun Instagram account from Split, actually, that always shoots like older, elderly people in their like fun Split gear. And so here we wanted to make the people unrecognizable, obviously, and this is how we ended up, editing the story. I think it was really, really fun. And then, this is just an overview of all the issues, from issue 1, when we met, I guess, or the 2nd maybe, and then all the way up to the last one. And you see it's very like colorful and, I don't know how to, quirky and trippy, and it's really like a contrast to also my other work that I do from a commercial perspective. And you see also through the covers that it's a really like a female gaze, actually, like it's really, I mean, for me at least. It's playful, you know, there are a lot of like females on the cover, and except maybe young Horn in the back on the toilet. We just put him in the bathroom. And so it's really like a, not just, like it's a female-led publication, and I think that's also maybe what makes it like special, or you can maybe feel it in the text and the magazine, because we don't think about it too much, but in the end, you know, when I looked through it, I was like, we are really like, it's female-led, you know, and it's great, but it's not something that we do on purpose. It was just like something that's intuitive, how we approach content and topics that we are interested in. And there are still some issues sold online. I think also one of the covers, I think that one is still available online, so in case someone is interested. And then some older ones, I don't know exactly, but we were also like thinking of doing like an archival website, so it's more accessible to people who are interested in our readers, just so it's also like a timeless body of work basically in digital experience as well, because it's a lot of text and a lot of work went into it, and sometimes when I think about it, it's just a pity that it's just like, I mean, it's great that it's out there in physical form, but we're thinking of ways how to digitalize it as well, to always have it available. And then we sometimes also do t-shirts. I don't want to call it merch because it's not really, but this was just a quote from our first issue, actually, from Alex Eros' column, which is really fun, by the way. It's like my favorite text every time in every issue. It's always a little bit spicy and, let's say, controversial, but it really gives you a good glimpse, like how he's comparing the Balkans to the West, and like always making fun of both cultures, and kind of being very self-critical as well. And that was a quote from him, and Enlightenment was a waste of time. But I also felt like, considering the world circumstances and everything, it was just a sentence I really related to, but also while I was having a phase personally of trying to heal or develop and survive and meditate my pain away, in the end, when I thought it through and I looked at the bigger picture, I realized in the end it's also a waste of time, so I really, like, that was such a existential philosophical short for me that I really wanted to have personally, and that's why we produced it, and it actually, people are still asking for it, but it's gone. And then, now I'm pulling out this quote because I think it kind of makes a nice transition to my other work, which is much more commercial. And so I shall also discuss the phenomenon that creativity itself requires limits, for the creative act arises out of the struggle of human beings with and against that which limits them. So what a great way to introduce a CV. I don't know, I was thinking while I'm talking about my career or commercial background, I think maybe it would be interesting for you also to just see a CV, because a lot of people, they maybe know me through Badland, but they're like, what are you actually doing, and what are actually, your skills, or what is your background, how did you end up there? And I kind of feel like that everything I did here was just a preparation for the publication, and that it's actually feeding each other. So I initially, I did my Bachelor of Arts in Fashion Design in Trier, back in the days, a long time ago. And then I was in Berlin for a really short period of time, realized I don't want to do design, I want to do visual communication. And then I went to the Institut Français de la Mode in Paris and studied visual communication and image design there. It was really, the EFM is really known for its close ties to the industry. So LVMH is really close to them, and other huge luxury houses. So it was really tough. I had the full master's graduation, was really intense. I never had time for myself, basically. We were just working, but I feel like I've learned what I've learned maybe somewhere else in 10 years. There I've learned in 1 year. So it was really like, I never know if I should recommend it or not, because I'm always like, it was also very hard, but it was also really good because I've learned a lot. And it definitely opens doors, obviously, I'm not gonna lie. And right after uni, I was working at the Dior Homme Visual Merchandising department, where I did a lot of set design and graphic design. And after that, I considered moving to Berlin, because there was an open position as an art director for Kemmler, also because my contract in Paris was ending and I couldn't find anything that was really suitable for where I wanted to go, because I was quite set on, I want to do art direction, I don't want to do, again, like design, but set design and fashion design, and like the imagery that you have to create for the brand really helps to kind of develop the art direction muscle. So when I heard about this opportunity in Berlin, I went there also for personal reasons, but this was like really the kickoff as a junior art director, basically, to just start working in the industry. And back then there were still like a small creative agency, and we were just 4 of us in their home, and now they really grew, I don't know how many people there are now, 40 or something, so it's really, it's just interesting to see the evolution of these kind of small agencies as well. But then after 1.5 years there, I realized, oh no, I really need to be by myself, and I need to feel what I can do by myself, like freelancing basically. And I thought also that Berlin was the perfect playground for that, because I felt like in Paris it's quite like, okay, you do this if you're that, and you do that if you're this. But in Berlin it was quite open, so I could do set design, I could do styling, I could do art direction. So it was really like fluid, and I could just practice and just take all jobs I wanted or that were offered to me, and just gain as much experience as I could. And this is what I've done for 6 years then. And then also, funnily enough, when I quit the agency, 1 month later, I met my partner from This Is Badland, and I was already breeding this idea of like creating a platform for my roots, or like the Balkans, or somehow connecting to my cultural background. I felt it was coming. I didn't know how. I was like, I know a lot of people in Paris and in Berlin and in London, but I was like, I don't know anyone from the Balkans, like just my family, and then like some boring people. It was never like, but I knew there were such amazing artists and people, I just didn't know how to reach them. And then there was just an email that came from Nina Vukalic, my partner back then, and then we connected, and then it just started from there. But it's the best feeling if you have an intuition and you know it's coming, but you're also kind of preparing for it. And then it's just really good to react also when that opportunity comes, and not be insecure about it, but to really have the guts to go all in basically and try to make it happen. And and then I applied for a full-time position after 6 years of freelancing, because obviously there was COVID, and then there were like a lack of jobs, obviously, and then it picked up slowly again, but I really felt like this fluctuation, and also like, I'm just gonna be honest, with the taxes and the back and forth, I was just like, okay, actually, I would like to have some corporate routine also, because I realized I need some limits. Like the past years have been so wild with the magazine, traveling around, just being everywhere, and then COVID hit, and I was suddenly, we were all stuck, and that just really made me like nervous, and I didn't know where to go, and I felt like I lost my routines. It was because my routine was just being on the move all the time. And then I realized actually it's also quite nice to have a daily routine and to kind of plan a bit ahead and not just like live from 2 months to the next 2 months. And so I was again intuitive, like I knew I want a fixed job because it just will give me kind of a framework to rethink the magazine, also to give me the freedom of like, oh, well, I'm not available all the time, like I work 9 to 5, so if anything, I have to be really like focused after work, and if it's really necessary to have this, so it was giving me less time, but actually I could focus more on, is it actually what I want to do? Also now for the 7th issue, we are reassessing how should we continue internally, how should we continue externally, so we're just taking time. Meanwhile, I don't feel like something is running away. You do your thing every day, and then you still meet amazing people through the corporate job as well. Like it's always like an exchange, and it's also nice to have photographer friends or whoever, and they're like, yeah, just book me for the next campaign. It's just you feel like you're at the source, and you can just like also have fun with it, right? Like you don't have to make it you don't have to make it sound for yourself like an office job. Like I really enjoy working creatively for a company as well. It has its pros and cons, but anyway, since I was always like quite also ambitious with my work and with my schedule, I just feel like confident here, and then who knows what the future holds. And and then I also just wanted to recommend, or just the name, the source of the quotes that I showed you. It's a book I would really, if you don't know it, highly recommend. You don't have to agree with every single thought he has, obviously, but it's really fun to read, and there are a lot of valuable phrases and theories and theses to catch out of it, and that really made me dwell on it a little bit further. And then, I don't know, like I had another video, but it's not working, I think. I don't know how long I've been talking. I had no time to prepare. Oh, that's long. No, it's not. It's fine. Okay, cool. I don't know, maybe you have some questions. I always like some interaction, or like, if you want to tell me about yourselves, or like if you can relate maybe to some of this, or where or which points you would like to me elaborate further on. So really feel free to just ask me, because I don't like just frontal presentations. I like when it's interactive.
Thank you for the wonderful invitation to ask questions. Maybe as usual, I'll break the ice. I ask maybe the first 2 questions, and then it's up to you guys. Thank you for this end of insight into your practice. The great thing is with being able to invite people here that I also get to understand what they're actually doing. And that's the same with you. I think she's doing all kinds of things, but so thank you for giving us these very personal insights. So context. The idea behind Juxtaposition, behind this lecture series is, and behind my entire work here at the UDK, is to show these whatever trans, cross, inter, para, undisciplined perspectives, and also kind of in a way to show the participants and the students that you're not really fixed or bound to whatever you're studying, that you can end up in very different places. And I studied philosophy and comparative religious studies. I'm now here working as a curator, so you studied fashion design and visual communication. Now you work neither as a fashion designer nor as a graphic designer. However, both come into play as a creative director, art director. So I'm curious, however, how these two studies inform your practice, or what you took from both of these study programs, the bachelor and the master.
Well, what I took from the fashion studies is definitely an understanding for silhouettes and shapes and concepts, and like, because obviously you have to make up your mind and come up with something. And you know, I always also loved, bless you, I love to sketch, and it was just, but I realized during the fashion studies that I don't really like sewing. I don't really like the technical part of it, which is quite important. And I know so many amazing, talented friends of mine are so good at it. So I was looking at them like, yeah, great, you're doing great. But I was like, ugh. But they always wanted me to like come up with ideas for the shoots. So this, like during the studies, I realized, well, I'm studying something I don't really want to become or be, or I'm not. It's not even be. Like I think if that's for you, you're already it, right? Like I think you would be it even without the studies. But sometimes it's just good to, you know, spark that talent inside of you and help, like have tutors and professors help you, guide you through the process. But this is how I actually realized, observing others, like, oh, I'm not like that. So that's also like always like the two polarities, like always having, it's good to have contracts. It's not like comparing yourself, but like it's just observing yourself and you like looking at others in a way like, oh, they're really good at it, but I'm really not. Or like, oh, they're really good at it, but they love it, but I'm actually not good at it because I don't love it, you know? And so also when I was actually designing my bachelor's collection, I was thinking of a collection that is, so I could create a concept that has as less seams as possible, so I don't have to sew that much and I don't have to ask for so much help. And it worked. But this is, you know, how I made my, like, it was fine. You know, I was like, I'm gonna finish this. You know, like I like to finish things. That's just my thing. Like if I start something, I'm pushing through until the very end. But I find my way how to do it. Like I find my personal angle to it. And it sounds really pragmatic and uninspiring maybe, but this is also maybe a way to go sometimes. And and this is how I've learned, like, okay, I don't want to do that. The first studies actually showed me this. You still learn something, obviously. You work with amazing, talented people. Like I think the best part of the university and the studies in general is just the connections you make. It's just the friends you make, the talents you meet, the rawness that you have during your studies that you won't find afterwards. Actually, like this kind of time, I think this is something to really soak up, and it will help you anyways for the future or the next steps. And then, yeah, I looked for something that's. I didn't even know what I was looking for, but then I went to open doors at EFM in Paris because I knew I wanted to be in Paris. That was the only thing I knew. And getting me in places and just intuition. And then I went there and I listened to some lectures about the new program that EFM was starting on image direction and visual communication in fashion specifically. And it sounded really actually like, oh, it's actually what's fun to me. And there I really learned, yeah, this is something I'm good at and I can develop myself further. And there again, I've learned so much through the tutors, but mostly through my fellow student, like colleagues, kommilitonen. So, yeah.
Sweet. So I'll have one more question, then it's you guys, okay? You get your question ready. So the other big topic of juxtapositions is collaborations across disciplines, across silos and areas. And then that's something that you obviously do when you do a magazine, or even when you organize a shoot. You have to think of the graphic designer, you have to think of the photographer, the models. There's a whole, there's a whole universe, a whole ecosystem behind it. So what are your experiences with that? Or like what recommendations do you have? Can you share some of those with us? Because it's always a tricky balance, no?
Yeah.
Like how do you manage that? There's also artistic egos involved. I work as a curator now for 20 years, and I love it. But it's also, they're not the most easily handleable people. So, but what are your tricks of the shade?
Okay, I see. I think first of all, I think it helps if you're already like yourself, bubbly and like open and try to be as ego-free as possible. I think. Because the more egos are added to the game of organizing things, the harder it gets. And of course, no one's ego-free, so it's always good to look at yourself. Okay, how can I communicate better? You know, don't just like send the first thought that you have, but like think, maybe I should wait another day because then they have more, and then they change them. So I think very strategically of how I approach people, even though it doesn't maybe come across like that, but you know, you can still be casual, but like know the timing and like check out what the person is doing. Maybe they're busy, like just be very like sensitive about it, but also like be straightforward, right? Like if you reach out. I remember once I had an idea, actually it was for this cover story with Young Hoon and his grandparents, and I had this idea of shooting Young Hoon by Jürgen Teller, and I was like, I don't know Jürgen Teller, I don't know how to get to him, and then one day I was just talking about this idea to a friend, and he was like, I think I know someone who has the number of him, just send him an SMS. Then I was like, what? No. So I felt very, you know, I'm quite discreet, and then I felt like, oh, this is like overstepping, and it's like, no, I'm going to reach out to him and then check and see if he's open, and then I just sent this message, and I was really like crafting, like, oh, how should I formulate it, and then I was just straight to the point, like, are you in? Would you be interested? And then it was just like, yes, let's do it. So sometimes it's just really not that complicated, but it's just like being respectful of people's time also, and not just like reaching out to people without really having a purpose behind it or a concept, or like, because they have to have something out of it, right? Like, you know, every time I reach out to a contributor, they know, okay, I trust her, it will be printed. It was harder for the first issues because they're like, you're a new magazine, when are you going to come out? Are you going to come out? And once, you know, you establish trust and you see it's happening, even though it's always delayed, but I think this is how you build a network, through trust, not over-promising, but just being honest and straightforward. And then, obviously with working commercially, like obviously there's limited budget or no budget for editorials, and then obviously when I work for a big company, they have huge budgets and it's a totally different ball game, and then you have producers, you don't actually talk to people. Like, I'm not the one reaching out to the creatives, it's just I make the pretty presentations and tell them like, I would like to work with this person or that person, and then the project owners and the producers are reaching out to these people, but then it's like a professional level and you just get all the info, timings, budgets, and then it's really like robotic basically, and it's just yes, no, and negotiations that I'm not involved in. So I have to say, maybe that's also why I like to work corporate, because it's kind of like it's kind of relaxing also to just come up with the idea. It's not just, it's also intense work, but at least I'm not even the one like who has to convince the photographers and everyone else to jump in. But with Badland it's obviously different, because if I don't do it, no one's going to do it. And but I know what you mean, like, you know, when you feature people's personal work and their full heart and soul is in it, of course there's like, I wouldn't even call it ego, it's just like emotions are attached, right? So it's like, if they feel like you're not treating them in the way that they want to be treated or their work, then it gets complicated because you have two different perceptions. But then again, we are at the slide, which I really like, of the third perspective. I mean, there are even more perspective, depends on which side you have the light on. But it's just something, this actually I always keep in mind when I get upset about something, or you know, like or excited about something, you know, to always keep like trying to keep like objective reality in mind, like, okay, this is like his or her perception, this is my perception, and maybe we're both wrong or both right. So I think this is maybe the secret sauce for communication, or like the collaboration aspect.
Nice answer. Okay, now you guys, who wants to go first? Yes, please.
Thank you so much. Beautiful magazine.
Thanks.
I have a question about the first story that you showed. Because you talked about like your background, childhood trauma and pain kind of also. And it seemed like that kind of sparked the magazine, or it sparked some stories in the magazine. But yet it looks very like playful and happy. And I'm wondering like how your background is translated into the work.
For the understanding, I have to translate this for our recording, because her question will not be heard.
Okay.
So for the continuity, I have to kind of repeat, and I'll break it down. But how does your personal story translate into the magazine? You spoke of growing up in two different worlds. and I don't know, the various traumas, or maybe transgenerational traumas, and then in a very playful kind of surface of the magazine. So how do these things come together?
Yeah, I think it's like, I mean, definitely my intention comes from my personal background, and my intention to found Badland was because I wanted to show like the social resilience and creativity that comes out of the post-war generation in the Balkans. And I think all of our families, no matter where you're from the Balkans, were traumatized heavily through the war, or the teardown of ex-Yugoslavia. So and this is what makes the area so interesting. When you meet people there, they all have totally different perspectives on the war also, because they're all from different countries and they were all like at war with it, and everyone was the victim. So it's very heated discussion still, and it's not that long ago. I mean, it was the early 90s, so it's really like a magazine about the post-war generation that came out of it and still has like really, fun times and humor, and is trying to connect, and is trying to get away from this like black and white thinking and, oh, my family taught me to think this, so I'm thinking this. It's more like, no, I want to have a new perspective on it, and we want to move on from the past, basically. And this is, I think, we don't want to be like just traumatized. We want to use it and turn it into something, right? And I think it doesn't even happen that consciously. It's just what comes out of us. And I can really see that with the local talent as well, or the diaspora talent. It's very vivid and funny sometimes, or like random, and it's almost like just becoming a meme in a way, like in terms of how we communicate from that area. And you always see like there's a little twist to it. It's always a little different and trippier, and and I think this is what we want. We want to pop bottles, right? Like bubbles, not bottles. Both.
Fair enough for you.
We want to pop bubbles. Yeah. So this is what the intention of the magazine is, and I think you summed it up quite well, actually.
Nice. Another question. Yeah, very good. Why is it called This is Badland?
So Nina and I were thinking about like, what are we going to call it? And obviously we didn't want to go for Balkans, because it's also not just about that area, it's also about the meaning of it, and the term just being tossed around like a hot potato, like everyone knows it, no one wants to belong to it. It kind of has a negative connotation, but still everyone knows who belongs to it. So it's like not Europe, not Middle East, it's like somewhere in between. And so we were thinking of something, of also like a fragmented area because of the war trauma and all that happened in the 80s and 90s. And so Nina actually stumbled on the word Badlands, which is like a landscape in America where rock strata are growing from like dry earth. And she just found the meaning of it pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, cool, but actually, if you look at the visual, it kind of also has the same typo as Balkan. Like, you start with ba, it's also land. I kind of felt like, this is the word, actually. It also has a similar length. It has a B and an N, I think that's and an L, so I found it really like, from the meaning, but also from just a visual perspective, quite on point. And even though there were then we did a research, obviously, I think there was even another magazine, there's a representing TV thing for artists, Badlands TV or something, and a video game, but we were like, no, but this is the name, once you feel it, you can, there is no other way. And so we called it This is Badland, and we're really happy that by now it's just an established thing, at least for our bubble, and for our readers, and so this is how we came up with Badland, actually,
Maybe a follow-up question.
And also because it's bad and land and Balkan's negative connotation, and it's kind of like playing with that negative connotation, and everyone understands it, right? It's in English, when you read it in Japan, you will still grab a copy because, you're like, oh, Badland, okay, it's Badland, I guess, and then it's really about the Balkans, and you're like, oh, sometimes we received emails, I think from Shanghai once also, oh, I love your magazine, I didn't even know about the area, but I can relate. It was so amazing because I think it's just the third generation of immigrants, or like, kids growing up basically somewhere else than their parents because their parents were displaced. So it's like everyone who has that in their family has a similar trauma. So I think this is how they can relate to it in a cool way, playful way.
And maybe following up to the question why the title, maybe you can go to the slide with all the different covers, because you have a very distinct kind of visual identity, and it's done with Bus Group, and you're still working with them, no?
Yeah, we work with them also for the last issue.
Yeah, so we see kind of the family similarities, but also development also of the logo, but it has a very distinct graphical language, not graphic, so, but maybe also graphic. Actually, also graphic. But yeah, can you talk a little bit about how this developed, also in collaboration with the designers, because they have their own language and style, but you bring you and can you talk about this?
Yeah, sure.
How it came all together?
So I've actually known Bus Group, or before they were Bus Group. They were just Daniel and Manu. And I met them working at Kemla, actually, because, again, we were all working together at this agency. I mean, they came a bit later. I was already gone, but we just quickly met and we kind of stayed in touch. And then when we were coming up with the concept for Badland, I was actually considering just designing it myself, because I was like, I don't know who to ask. Like, we just have to kick it off and start exploring. And then actually we met up and pitched not really pitched, but I just explained to them the idea and the concept behind the magazine and the intention, and they were immediately like super excited about it and thought like this is really an exciting project, and really like proactively actually said like we want to be part of it, please feel free to reach out once you're at the step. And then the idea was to not really, from the beginning actually, even from the first issue, the idea was to not stick to one logo anyways, because we felt like the Balkans and Badland are way too eclectic and fragmented for just have like one logo. So even like in the first issues, you will see we always use like different typography, different Badland logo. Like it was also fun to just play around sketching Badland logos from every day, and like, oh look, I have a new one, and then this could be good for a page. I don't know. So it was always like an ongoing joke and topic to come up with new Badland logos. And so, we brought it to the front cover for the fourth issue. And and then we just played around basically. And we always like that, when you work for commercial clients, you're quite restricted, which is also good. But for Badland, the actual fun was in tripping and just being like, okay, what could we do? What is like crazy, or what is the next logo we want to develop? Or sometimes it was just born one night before the print and hey, let's just put it on top. So it was very like playful, trippy, and everyone chimed in from the Bus Group team also. So it was not like, it's not hierarchical at all how we work. It's like the intern has as much to say as Bus Group themselves or myself, because we appreciate good ideas and effort and just having fun doing it. So, and this is just, when they thought of Balkans and Badland, like, we just wanted to be like a little bit rude also, or just a little bit non-conforming. So this is how the identity ended up this way, I would say. And still keeping like the this is and the number 5 always like as a framework.
My association was always the Michael Jackson bad. This kind of also kind of graffiti-ish written on the
but that was
cover.
not the reference.
No, funnily. But that's everyone has a different pattern that he or she recognizes or them recognize. Yes.
Thank you for talking. It's amazing to meet with you. I would like to ask where can we purchase if it's purchasable or not?
Sorry, where? The magazines, we can purchase them. Do You Read Me? I don't know if they still have some, but also online. I mean, this, as I said, this one is still out there. The other ones are sold out. But you can check on our website, thisisbadland.com, and there's like a shop button, and then you can see which issues are available. Maybe there's also one of the older ones, I don't know. But otherwise, Do You Read Me?
It's a great book, a magazine store, if you don't know it.
Yeah.
In Auguststraße in Berlin Mitte, Do You Read Me?
Yeah.
It's the best of the best in magazines and independent magazines.
Yeah.
Do you read me? We're making a commercial, commercials for a bookstore. That's good. Yeah.
Do you read me? Yeah. They have it for sure.
And where can we find the video that we couldn't watch?
Oh, it's on the Instagram account of. It's just called "This Is Badland," the Instagram handle, and then you can just go on. You can just check out. I mean, it's not that much content up there, but there are some videos that we published as the teaser, and I think it gives you like a good. I think this is like the one I wanted to play, but.
I am amazed by the fragility and the sensuality that you can bring with your art. You know, because what I dislike about what I consume these days is the non-sensuality is the basic ground. It becomes the art becomes anti-erotic in a way, but more as a pornographic like perception through the art and the consumer. At this point, when I see like your like art, it makes me really like dizzy in a way because I also feel the otherness, the maybe Orient in a way Orient place
Like a layer,
you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
yeah. I come from Turkey and I can see some cultural things that are also like creating my childhood, my vision of childhood, you know, and especially the cover of the Ford magazine just crashed me, you know. Thank you for.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Like this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's also around there, right? Like, it's
Yeah.
yeah. This was shot in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Yeah.
It's amazing.
Thank
So
you.
for the recording, I mean, basically it was a large compliment. No, it's good, it's very good, but it's noted again the fragility and sensuality of the images and the storytelling. And very beautiful that you said the images make you almost dizzy, which fits to your attempt to be trippy somehow, and showing also the otherness of the imagery, of the stories, of the narratives. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a really nice compliment, actually, for one's work.
You made me
I think
dizzy.
the best one. Like, oh,
I like that. Yeah.
I really like that. I'm gonna write it down. No, thank you so much. And I think it's just nice to hear because again, it's nothing that we do with. I mean, it's an attempt, but it's not really because also when I pick the cover or like the stories, I just have a feeling. It's not even. I'm not thinking like. And I know what's too much, what I feel like, because also like this, some would say, oh, it's really graphical, but even my mom liked that picture and she's very conservative. So it's kind of like, it's always a good test, you know, to have my mom like, you like it or not, you know, because she's conservative, but she likes fun. She likes, it's the typical Balkan people, they're conservative, but they're also like super open and like when it comes to sexuality and stuff, they're like, something like what? Much more open than people in the West sometimes. And so like super relaxed about it, you know, it's super natural, but at the same time, no. So I think this is maybe how, again, childhood and maybe the upbringing is playing in again. So this is why, yeah, I like to always refer to childhood and look at it and see at the images and what I was wearing and how trying to remember what my parents try to, you know, how they tried to condition me and how I actually needed that contrast to break free and to do something else. And it's also, I think also Badland was actually from a personal perspective at least like still like a rebellion, you know, against how I grew up and like, but it's also not because then again, I play with these symbols and I play with it and I appreciate it also by now. Before 30 I didn't appreciate it, so, but now the older I get the more I'm like, actually, it's not too bad. You know.
Nice. Maybe one more question from you guys. Yes, please. Oh, two I have, okay.
I have a question about like how your corporate versus kind of your more personal work differ in how much your personality comes to it. Because of course your personal work has to be very personal in a way, otherwise it doesn't really make sense. But also, I would like to believe that there is a way to include your personal
Very good question. The question also had in mind is the connection or the juxtaposition of your personal and independent work and then your corporate or commercial work, where the observation was obviously in your personal work. This is Badland. You have all the freedom. You can do whatever. It's clear. But can your kind of personal trade signature also translate in the corporate commercial world? Or how do you keep the balance between that? Or is it possible?
Well, I think it's a good question, thanks. I think, first of all, when I work commercial, I try to put myself aside because it's like, obviously I have a certain level of taste or like of aesthetic, what I want to bring to, you know, the quality is just there that I want to provide, but I'd really try to, that's also my task, right? When I work for a client or I work for a company to really to sell whatever they want me to sell, you know, like I take it very professional and like, even though I would like maybe something more edgy or whatever, me personally, but when I see it with the brand, I'm like, it doesn't match at all. And then I would never, ever, and this is why for me it's really easy to work ego-free for company, because my emotions are really, hope they don't see this, but disattached from it. Like, it's not like I don't care, but in the end I really don't. Like if the boss says like, I want to go for this, I'm like, sure, even though I think, but I'm like, it's fine, I can make it pretty, you know, I can make it good. Because I see what's good and I trust my intuition and I know how to work it with the photographers and the team, but I don't judge it from a personal perspective of like, is this like, you know, smart enough? Could it be better? Yes, it could always be better, but you know, it's everything is just much more, in a way, pragmatic also, and I always try to keep it simple also when I present ideas to clients, because if you cannot explain it in 5 slides, and obviously I could never, you know, even though these are a few slides, but like present my personal take on something in 5 slides is very, you know, if I want to go really deep, as I like to go personally, but when you work commercial, you only have as much time, and then you have 5 slides and you take your personal stuff aside, but at the same time, you still see at the end, at least that's what my friends say, or people that work in the creative industry, like, you just see you did it, you know, like even though trillion people are involved, you know, like I'm just the tiny creative or art director somewhere, but there's like, you know, a whole creative agency behind it and like amazing directors that we also choose, obviously, and we communicate and work with, but in the end it's like the vision is coming together by a whole bunch of people, so I could never say like, oh, this is my personal work, and that's also why I don't like presenting it as such. I could present you like some videos or whatever I did, but I always find it a bit like, because there are so many people involved and it would just take 10 minutes of explaining each and every one, which I would like to do then. And then it's just, but if you want, I mean, you can also just check out my Instagram. You can see sometimes some videos that I posted there, are commercial as well. I think I marked one, the last one that I did for Zalando, on the top left. I really love video storytelling, like coming up with a concept for that and like a vision for it, and guiding the creative agency through that kind of stuff. So in the end, you can always see when you have a certain aesthetic or style, you can always see, oh, there is a little twist to it. You know, I always like to, if I can somehow bring a little surprise or twist or like, you know, take the brand but make it a little bit better. It's just like trying to put a little bit of like your own touch on top of it, but it's not really forcing it up on the client.
But I would also say that when looking also at your commercial work, you can tell.
I guess, because you're creative in the end. You cannot put this aside, and you're
there's
involved.
There's a style,
and
kind of sensitivity for things.
I guess, because also you're on set, and they ask you, should I do this or that, and then you say, I want actually the third thing, and then they make it happen, and then it's like, oh, actually it makes sense. So you are involved, obviously, with your vision, and maybe that's the details, how in the end it kind of fits into the overall picture if you look at, I don't know, my portfolio. So, but I'm also happy to, if someone wants to see my portfolio, I can also just share it with you, and you can share it with whoever is curious, because then you can get a better, I don't have it online anywhere. I like to be mysterious. And
thanks for the offer. Yeah. There was another question here.
It must be very expensive to self-publish a print magazine.
how do you choose, I guess, who advertises in the magazine? And then maybe to a greater extent, how do you not compromise your vision for like a commercial appeal or success?
Yeah.
Sorry to repeat. Yeah, a good point. I had this also on my list here. Basically, regarding the financing of a self-published magazine, like how do you choose what commercials you take in or not? How can you compromise even a magazine or not? Or how do you finance it? Very simply speaking.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's always the most obvious, like it's the first, it's like, how do you do this? Wait a second. And the thing is, advertisings, yes, but they don't cover, like they barely cover just the print, but then the rest I pay by myself, actually, and or my partners. And so that's why I always call it a passion project. And like, honestly, it sounds a bit like braggy in a way, but like we could have, you know, there were some issues that had a lot of like resonance and like a lot of advertisers reached out, but every time I'm like, you just have a feeling of like, oh, it's gonna get so complicated. And also like a few K are not enough to like, you know, then I would need 3 more advertisers. And then you realize, because I also work commercially and I know how other magazines work, I just see, also if you just observe, you know, you check out other publications, you see the rhythm they have to be published in, you see the advertising, like I observe these things and I'm like, do I want this for my publication? And I actively say so far, no. But right now, because it is complicated and at some point there's only as much as you can or want to invest until you want to invest in yourself, maybe in your future. Because this was a really fun project now and I want to continue it in ways, I don't know how, but like just now running for the next print issue is not an option for us because it's just, we know how much time it is, money it is, and we just want to see if we cannot do it in a way that really funds it from beginning to scratch. We are not going to do it and we are going to wait it out and see what happens and maybe focus on the web or something, to be really transparent with you, because it always worked somehow. You know, it was not like after one issue I was like, oh yeah, now we have enough money. We basically, after every issue, we started from scratch. But by now, when you do it like 6 years, you get tired, you know, because every penny we got from advertisers was also through my contacts. So it's like, you know, after a while, you know, doing the creative direction and the editing and everything is just too much, and then running after advertisers, it just gets really tiring. And then, but finding a salesperson on that level, it's also, you know, like building a team, it costs again. But now, honestly, like, if we would have a new team or something, you know, I think I could handle it because I have like a monthly salary and I could be like, okay, I can dedicate a few €100, I don't know how much, but to that person, and then we slowly start building, but it's really a lot of effort. But I'm not so afraid of like, I never think things so much until the end because I like the process, you know, I'm like, as long as we get the next one out, or as long as we like have 3 stories together, I'm gonna make it work. So, because I also believe in energies and like what you put in, and also kind of like, I trust in the process and I trust something will come, and this is how this was created, you know. I never had a family background or anyone who could like sponsor me, so this is all goodwill from people who believe in the publication and advertisers and contacts that we had. But it was always scratching things together and last minute being like, oh great, we sold the back cover, now we can print. So it's very much like we usually collect all the contributions and then try to find you know, try to go around and be like, look, this is going to be really great, and then we find someone usually to chimp in a little bit. But it is a big investment. It's not like, you know, if you want to do print, you have to do it from your heart and you have to feel driven, and like it has to spark something inside of you. Otherwise, I would say, save the money and do something else with it.
Yeah, it's a good
or
point.
just become a, you know, you could also go full on into the circle. We could do that. Like we could, you know, become seasonal, but then we're just another fashion publication. And this is something I absolutely don't want to do because I already do that. And there are so many amazing fashion magazines out there. Again, I'm observing others and I'm like, they're great at it. They have the best fashion editors. Like, why would I have to do it as well? You know, it's just like one on top, and I don't like to waste paper. So I'm like, you know, I want to stay specific because that's the fun of Badland also, and that's why people buy it. You know, if you would want to buy a fashion magazine, you wouldn't buy Badland, but then the more fashion advertisers or lifestyle advertisers you get in, you are kind of like limited again in terms of like, they want to know what kind of story you're shooting, and then you have to integrate the products. And this is really something for my personal freedom.
Beautiful. You gave a lot of great advice in your last answer, but my final question always is to all of the speakers here is, what's a piece of advice that you want to share with everyone in the room and online for all the becoming musicians, artists, architects, designers, fashion designers?
God, that's such a general question.
Yeah.
I'm so specific. I would be like, but tell me your childhood story. Then I can give you the best advice. I think it's so hard to generalize, like, 'cause that's what I've learned, you know, it's just, also I've received a lot of advices where I'm like, I wish I would have not, because what is the best advice? I think to just have the courage to create. I don't know, you know, like, not being afraid of like, what if, you know, for example, I'm recording a song now and it's gonna drop in September, or maybe not, maybe I'm jinxing it right now, and then maybe no one's gonna listen to it, maybe people will, maybe I won't get into music, so it's like, I think it's, us creatives should never lose the motivation of just being curious and thinking of, I have a gut feeling, I want to try this, I don't know. And this is also how I, ended up singing with the Bulgarian voices, for example. It's just a hobby, but it turns out to be really intense and like, a lot of rehearsals, and suddenly you feel like a professional choir singer, you're like, why am I in this? But it's also just curiosity. So just stay curious, have the courage to create and never stop, and just, if you feel like, it's not working and you pushed hard enough, let go, next, I don't know.
Beautiful. But the courage to create, that's a wonderful mantra for the day. So thank you all for being here, online in persona. I see you for one last time for Juxtaposition in 2 weeks from now, with another wonderful presentation by Tomias Radin, a painter, visual artist, a dancer, choreographer. But now another warm applause for Rafaela and your wonderful presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for the wonderful questions. And thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Soll ich das abmachen?
Kannst du hier. Voll gut.
Ja? Oh, gut. Okay.